Come scrapbook with me while I talk about Vocaloid's Chris, Ken, Kaori, and Amy. Yes, really. I'm mostly going to be talking about the Vocaloid 5 era in general. Okay, Chris, Ken, Kaori, and Amy are a set of 4 starters for the Vocaloid 5 engine. 1 week before V5 dropped, Yamaha made an announcement that they were discontinuing a few of their Vocaloid titles, namely VY1, VY2, Cyber Songman, and Cyber Diva. During this week-long period, there was a scramble to purchase these Vocaloids before they went bye-bye. Then Vocaloid 5 dropped, and alongside the 4 new starters, VY1, VY2, Cyber Songman, and Cyber Diva all got updates in the Vocaloid 5 engine. So let's talk about Chris, Ken, Kaori, and Amy first. Kaori and Ken are Japanese Vocaloids. V5 is the era where they axed cross-synthesis, so Chris, Ken, Kaori, and Amy each have 1 voice bank. Between Ken and Kaori, Ken was definitely the more popular of the two. He's a very similar voice type to, say, Hiyama Kiyoteru, which made the Vocaloid fandom happy, but pissed off the Kiyoteru stans. As for Kaori, I would say she's comparable to Sachiko. You take away the Enka, you get Kaori. The other 2 Vocaloids are English Vocaloids named Chris and Amy. Of the 2 of them, Amy was definitely the more popular. Now I say Ken and Amy are popular, they are popular of the 4 starters. During the Vocaloid 3 era, Yamaha was all about appealing the fandom. Concerts, merch, collaborations, contests, all of that was gone. Vocaloid 3 was the party in the back. Vocaloid 5 is the business in the front. The Vocaloid team at Yamaha had changed midway through the Vocaloid 4 era. I think a good landmark for this is when they discontinued all the Yamaha Vocaloid boxes. That happened around the mid to end point of Vocaloid 4. With the change of this team came a lot of new changes to Vocaloid, not just as a product, but as a community. So first things first, Chris, Ken, Kaori, and Amy are very unique in that they are the first Vocaloids to be starters that come with the engine, the standalone engine. Like, yeah, we have starter packs for individual Vocaloids, but this was the first time we had like default Vocaloids that came with the editor. There were 2.5 versions of the editor. The standard editor, which had Chris, Ken, Kaori, and Amy. The premium editor, which is the same editor, but it had the 4 starters, and it had VY1, VY2, Cyber Songman, and Cyber Diva. 8 Vocaloids in an engine for a whopping $360. Yeah, that's just the start of Vocaloid 5. Yamaha was not letting anybody make Vocaloids anymore. They had raised the price of development for Vocaloid. They weren't letting small companies or individuals make Vocaloids anymore. What does this mean? Aside from the 4 starters, he had a whopping total of 3 new Vocaloids in the 4 years of Vocaloid 5. That's Haru no Sora and Mekahime and Mikoto. We did get Tiani, Ling, and Yanha for Vocaloid 5, but that happened during the Vocaloid 6 era, so we're not counting them right now. During the 4 years of the Vocaloid 5 era, we had 3 new Vocaloids. We didn't even have any new updated Vocaloids, aside from like VY1, VY2, Cyber Songman, Cyber Diva. Yamaha burned a lot of bridges in Vocaloid 5. Even Zero G, the company that released the first 2 Vocaloids ever, they were unable to progress with Vocaloid. Infamously, in the beginning of the Vocaloid 5 era, Krypton, the company behind Hatsune Miku, announced that they were departing from Vocaloid and they were no longer developing for the Vocaloid engine. Instead, they were going to develop for their own engine called Pio Pro Studio. Now, to be fair, Krypton had wanted to do this for a long time, so Vocaloid 5 was just kind of like the push they needed, I guess. Also, that lasted a whopping 6 years because they just came back to Vocaloid a few weeks ago. But I made a separate video about that, so focusing on Vocaloid 5. Vocaloid 5 did not please consumers. The base editor cost $225, and Vocaloid 5 right out of the gate was really buggy. Like, even high-end computers couldn't really run the software very well. And it took Yamaha years to patch a lot of the problems. Yamaha ended up creating a Vocaloid drought. Basically, up until 2020, 2021, nothing was really happening. Not with Vocaloid, anyway. With the fall of one king comes the rise of another. With Vocaloid no longer monopolizing the market, it gave way for other engines like Chevio and, namely, Synth V. Chevio had existed prior to Vocaloid 5, but again, the downfall of Vocaloid really helped Chevio. Vocaloid 5 also did have a trial, but towards the very end. This trial was also region-locked to Japan. If you wanted to use it, you had to change your locale to Japan. I actually had emailed Yamaha about this, asking them about an English version. They responded by telling me to buy the software and do a chargeback if I didn't like it. That was 2022. Vocaloid 5 was also only backwards compatible to the Vocaloid 3 era, which meant the mass exodus of Vocaloid 2 voice banks, namely Pico. You could still buy Pico for a while there, but you just couldn't put them in Vocaloid 5. If you wanted to use your Vocaloid 2 voice banks, you had to buy Cubase, which is a separate digital audio workstation, which meant spending more money. Cubase offered the Vocaloid 4.5 editor, which apparently couldn't be its own thing. V5 was Vocaloid's flop era. But V6 is doing really well.